I always want to put on like a little sign on my thermostat that says, like a little like um what do they call it? Like a dichotomous key. Like, are you cold? Yes. Okay. Do you have a sweater on? Yes. Okay. Now you can touch the heat.
Just pin up your old bill beside it.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law lives in the house with us, and he's always cold, but he won't put a sweater on.
No.
And I'm like, what's the deal? Right? I wear a sweater all the time. I wear a sweater in the summer for air conditioning.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's nice. It's cozy.
Family or something.
Yeah. Come on.
Well, I think that the deal is it's in a box somewhere in the basement. He doesn't want to.
Doesn't want to go get it.
I would give you a sweater if that's the problem.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Travis is like, all right, today we can, around this time, we can open up the house, let all the warm air in. Seems like a lot of effort to go through to just avoid turning on the heat.
0, 1, 6, 8. Gonna log into everything. All of the things. Here we go.
So are we doing this by Zoom? Is that what this is?
Well, I've got to I stream all of them.
Oh.
Much to my chagrin, but
I don't remember that.
yeah, it's always I've always got to go and get the stream keys and put it up on our calendar and put the stream keys up on our calendar and upload everything. It's actually a lot more than I would have expected before the position, but I went to a concert. I guess it was Wednesday. I sent out an email about it, seeing if anyone else wanted to go, but like a group called Rubble Bucket, kind of like a art jazzy funk indie band from New York, but they had a nonprofit reach out to me saying that everywhere that they go, they would have like a cause, a nonprofit organization that they would try to get some money for. So they would allow to have a table and like talk about it on stage.
Oh wow.
So I was like, yeah, sure, we'll go. If you guys can get us some money, that's great.
Right.
I think we may have gotten a few dollars or something.
Wait, was that the theater?
It was at the church theater. Yeah. So I got.
How were they as bands?
They were great.
Yeah.
Really good. I was really surprised, pleasantly surprised, but they actually, like, in the middle of one of the songs, the singer, she like came down through the crowd and then like came over to me and was like, I'm guessing you're from the Tree Council. I was like, well, yeah. It's like, all right, well, you're coming up after this song. And I was like, oh no, you can just sing to my way, it's fine. And she's like, no, you're coming up on stage. I was like, oh, okay, I guess. So it's fun. Yeah. I never thought I'd ever be on the stage at the Georgia Theater using the microphone.
Wow.
It's very odd.
You had to tell, didn't you?
Yeah, she was just like, hey, tell them about the community tree council. And she was like asking me questions. She was like, well, actually, the first thing I got up, because they wanted to like get us enough money to plant a tree. And I got up there and she's like, well, so what are we doing? We're planting a tree tonight? And I was like kind of confused. I was like, I don't see any soil. And then the drummer was like, did you? I was like, oh my gosh, it starts. Okay. But yeah, it was fun.
Nice.
It was cool. Got to chat with a bunch of people.
So are we getting money from that?
I hope so. I saw one person, because they have like a little QR code that you could do.
Yeah.
I saw one person give us money.
Huh.
So I think it was big.
It's cool. So they just kind of pick up organization. They travel as they tour.
Yeah, for each location of the tour.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And I assume they'll be sending us some information here with like, hey, we didn't get much money.
We might not be planting a tree.
Might get us a steak or a tree diaper or something. Not even.
No, those are probably expensive.
I'm going to make sure that no one is milling around in the front here.
was locked earlier.
Oh, it was.
It was, showed us the secret hiding place for the key.
I thought that's what y'all might be doing. I was like, it's obvious, it might be hidden under the HVAC unit. That might
Howdy, Wick.
Very, I think the intent. Like to provide. But goes through like what these.
Yeah,
are.
that opportunity.
I think that is the intent.
Okay.
They have
Would it be
rights
online?
started.
Or would it be on-
It's like video, yeah, it's like, and you have to have your AC. Into it. but,
Okay.
like, starting with a certain.
Well, there's
Quite
no
kitchen.
information.
Yeah, it is nice. Let's see.
At the net of the table.
I'm standing today.
I'm just waiting.
I figured I could be like the teacher and I could just move around as I go.
Well, it's actually quite cumbersome to think about having another email, so, yeah.
Kind of.
I know, that's about, about some of this, and I have some strong feelings about, yes.
Yeah, my wife was in
Yeah.
the kitchen or
Okay.
Kim's kitchen.
Another one.
I'm like, in actual 3 days.
She is the campus kitchen.
He had a few hundred students, but yeah, she said she's on full time.
Yeah, yeah.
Y'all sounded really good. Y'all's in the choir. Is that an interim choir director? Is that?
He's brand new.
He's brand new, okay. Yeah, he's really good.
He is good, although he's very disorganized. You can't necessarily, well, he doesn't do the bells. The bells guy is not disorganized at all.
So you kind of, from the get-go.
Yeah, the new choir director.
My opinion, yeah.
He's like, yeah.
Is it? He has a really good touch with the piano.
He does, and, well, I mean, he has a degree in. Yeah,
Okay.
and he's done a lot in Turkey.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he keeps changing his mind about what he wants to do and what he wants to do it, and I don't work that way. I like to have this, I like to know what's happening when.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, let's just wing it. My husband is much better at that, because he's an improvisation. He is, whereas I'm
So I think that's.
classically trained, and whatever's written down is what you do.
Yeah. Cliff is really good at that.
Oh, yeah.
To consider.
Yeah, so I was Cliff.
Yeah, he had a nice.
He was a little disorganized too, but it never felt chaotic. Because he was so nice.
Quiet, but I said no.
How many people do we have?
Stick this-
Yeah, yeah. You can stick it right in my office. Thank you.
So also, I thought that it was, active members, that it had to be a third of active members. I don't know if you've ever resolved, and we only have like 12 active members.
It has to be half.
And it would have been, I guess I always wanted.
17. Or no, I'm sorry, 7.
We have to have
Way
seven
off.
of them.
Like, well, it's like, so ending, that's like a chief of liaison. Right. With liaison until. Really?
I think I'm a voting member.
Voting member, though.
I think Wick is ex officio. Stacy's ex officio. Well, we don't have a quorum right now, but we could start discussion, if nothing else.
I know Sean won't be here, Joe won't be here,
Okay.
and Holly won't be here.
Still won't be.
So this may be everyone. Tori and Ernie won't.
In my, yeah, we have to resolve that, we need to resolve that situation.
Tori has stepped down officially.
Do you have any contact with her?
Never, not a single bit. I've reached out.
So did he reach out to you or did you ask her?
I contacted her and asked her if she was
Good fit.
going to, yeah.
And did you reach out to Ernie?
Yes, but I've never gotten any response.
And what about the Eric Rosal?
Oh, yeah.
He hasn't been here in at least a year.
And
Yeah.
that were, became, lost in the.
Right.
I think Sarah might be rolling off this December, but I could be wrong.
As the president, I say we kick her off.
I mean, we kind of can at this point.
It says that they don't come to 3 meetings. I didn't.
No.
if they're active on the list, if they're officially on the list, we require that for a quorum. We can operate with fewer people.
Yes.
Mhm.
So they need to be off the list so that we can reach our quorum.
That's right, that's what I think.
I think
Yeah.
technically because we raised the number of members to 15 or to 14, I think we always have to get half of that, regardless of if those positions are filled or not.
If it's a problem, you can look at changing that in the bylaws for the
Yeah.
future, because we've had to do that too. So if it's a
Yeah.
problem, you can always look at a percentage or,
Okay.
because it does turn into a challenge.
And how can we vote to change it if we don't have to?
Go ahead.
Well,
I talked to the city manager. They said that if we are going to vote someone off, we need to talk with them first because technically it's something that's voted in by mayor and commission. It's like a position that that person has been given. So if we're going to vote them off, we have to like give them notice. So, but I think 2 out of the 3 will be off in this December, so we don't really have to worry about that for them. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Doesn't want to continue.
When's he up?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Joe,
Same.
I think he's got 1 more year,
Yeah,
He's having a baby in February.
so he'll have plenty of time. Ah, ah.
It doesn't have to be, you can be religious representative. It's not a requirement.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
I hope he's a better dad than he is a tree council member.
Brutal.
do we have
It was a really good member for a long time. Every meeting and.
An agenda? I don't think so. Jesse, do we have an agenda? Do we have an agenda for today?
Again, Joe was a much better president than me.
Joe was an excellent president.
Well, let's just list it off. There are a few things that I think we should talk about. Jesse, if you've got anything, let us know.
2 things, which are probably on your list.
Let's hear them.
I submitted the application for MLK Day
Okay.
preemptively and also late. It was due yesterday, and I waited for a response from him, but he was out of town.
You can take this.
So I submitted it this morning, even though we haven't had a chance to discuss it or vote on it, because I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity of having us, and maybe you can. Okay. I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity of being linked with the event. So I went ahead and submitted it, just kind of a vague description of plan Firefly Trail like we did last year. So that we, because otherwise we would risk not having enough.
And I think that's a stand-in. I'm sure that they want to discuss and vote on what we would do, but always say like, we're gonna do it. Or,
So I don't know, like what happened this year, but last year, you and I were like, out, and because I actually don't sit on the committee anymore after 23 or whatever. So my staff does, I know, but I don't always, but I actually this year, I did ask them to let me know as soon as the application goes out, but I don't feel like I forwarded it. I don't feel like you and I
No,
have a
'cause
conversation about it.
The only reason I knew that the application period was closing was because I saw a social media post about it, and it was like, oh, we didn't vote on anything. So I think the only reason we would have to vote is if we were spending money, which I'm hopeful that if we do smaller trees this year, one, they would have a maybe better chance of since last year or not. Doing so.
they had a rough go, but I mean, they.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Summer was.
And it was last summer.
They were big.
So I'm hoping that maybe if we plant smaller trees, we might be able to get them donated, and then we wouldn't have to spend any money, and then it wouldn't matter. I think that would be the only instance in which we would need to.
So were you thinking if, I mean, you may not have thought about it all, they were to be donated, but were they donated, or business to?
Yes and yes, so,
All of those.
I think we could have both. Again, if it's smaller trees, we would potentially maybe plant more of them and then also could afford more if we had a monetary donation from the business. And then also talking, I know somebody who has a really good contact at a nursery who's gotten free trees in the past,
Mhm.
so.
And are those trees that they're just like, been on the lot, but I mean, one reason we have the larger tree. Like a special tree that we can kill. The weird ball.
Although one of the trees that we got last year,
That's a weird root ball.
it was, and you know what? The other one, the one that we replanted in replacement is dead, and that one is survived.
What's, as far as success with the planting, range of caliper that you think would be a successful range to, we're gonna ask.
Well, smaller is easier to handle, it's easier to
Dig the holes
dig the
easier.
holes, yeah, there's just a lot of reasons to go, I would say like a 1-inch caliber would probably be the most suitable.
7-gallon.
Yeah, instead of all the burlap, like
Yes.
having like.
It could be a 15, usually it's 17 to 15.
It was an awesome educational opportunity, honestly, though, like, planting those large trees. I've never planted any trees that large before, so I've had Sean walk us through, and Sean and Phil walk through the basics of the healthy, how this happens. For me, it was interesting because I think about it happening around the city doing the hardships of it, or like what's hard, what's good about it, what's hard about it. So I learned a lot from.
Well, and that was actually what, another component that I put in the application was that, our mission is not just tree planting, so. In everything that we do, I feel like there should be an educational component to it, and so. Hopefully we would have different volunteers than we had last year and include the tree planting demonstration as just kind of a continuance of that event every year. If we are planting trees, then we should provide the education on proper planting ahead of it
I think it's a
as a
good idea.
community service.
I launched for those trees last year.
How much were they?
Large.
Oh, 2-inch caliper, I believe, maybe even bigger. They might have been a 3-inch. Yeah,
They
I feel like it might be more like.
I think a 3. Probably, 12 feet tall before leafing out. So
it was a lot of coordination. To get it.
The whole had to be pre-dug, not what, like 15 knots.
Hard packed up there.
Yeah.
Railroad, so the soil is really,
I had to get,
but I mean, I'm worried about 2 smaller trees.
yeah, you're right.
So we got maybe 15 gallon. I mean, we have tried various things.
we've got landscape management here, Cody, who takes care of the Firefly Trail, or at least any paved trail, like the few feet just off of it. And they've had their guys water it occasionally. And I don't think it was water availability that was the issue with the tree this year. It seemed like something different. I haven't been able to figure it out yet. I'm going to pull the whole thing up here in a little while, though. Once we have another good rainy day, I'm going to go and just pull the whole thing up and see what the root ball looks like. That might tell us something.
And they did have, water bags on them.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
That could be part of the planning, like if we're gonna go smaller caliper, that it's gonna have to get through, 2 years of summer, then the water maintenance schedule will have to be more clearly incorporated in. That's something.
I think if I had to guess what the cause of them dying was that late winter freeze. We had that one really cold day after the trees had already started to bud.
That Christmas tree?
No, it did spring.
There were 2 March freezes, because that's what killed all the peaches.
Yeah, it was a very late, in the season, the trees had already started to bud.
It wasn't late for us, it was Because the trees were so much more developed than usual.
Yeah, those buds were really tender and like
Yeah,
just
If I,
because it was so warm in February.
yeah, if I had to guess that we had that really warm February followed by one really, really cold day, so the trees were confused as hell and then shocked. So, that would be my guess and what happened.
Pretty exposed out there.
Yeah.
When you completed the application, was there a location on the application this year that asked you if you wanted grant funds if they were available?
Well,
It's going
I know
down-
in general since you left the.
I know. What are you doing? Just have to get that.
So it has a lot to do with how much they fundraise, but if they come up with money, that is something that would maybe come out, is to say, hey, do you need any supplies for your project? Where at that point you could ask for. Or
We
feedback.
suffer more from manpower issues, from the long term to keep these alive for you.
But like when we did like a Millage Avenue tree planting project, with this council, we kind of got ourselves on a schedule of going down Millage and watering. Was anybody here during that time?
Bill was, I remember him.
Yeah, everybody kind of took turns because we did not want those trees to die. And we knew that our fraternity sorority friends were maybe not going to do the watering that they needed to. And so we took care of them for 2 years.
Did you just use like the closest water source or?
So some places, that's what they did. And then other places, I feel like the water truck, like, they would bring in the water truck. And so,
Phil and Rodney, I think, were the two that really took care of the Rodney.
and Nina, I feel like, was it Nina? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
John, yeah.
kids out there.
Yeah.
The lions.
I went out once. I don't know. I don't mean,
I
I did it once.
Safe.
I don't know. I tried to get in there if I could, but it helped. I think it really, really helped.
That
That we all
segues,
had our eyes on them.
that segues into questions that the Cobham Tree Committee has asked me to ask Mateo, you, and ask the council. They are doing another campaign to plant trees in the neighborhood. And so Monica called me and had some questions, and one of them was planting in the verge, going down Hill Street, heading towards Prince. Over 20 years ago, they were doing all those dogwoods in the verge, and they'd like to replace some, and I probably shouldn't have been the one to talk to them, because of course I was like, it's totally fine, yeah. But I needed to know if they can, I said that we couldn't maintain them and that the city wouldn't plant in the verge for sightline issues, but I didn't know that there was a reason that they couldn't replace dogwoods that were already planted in the verge. Get in trouble.
It's
Replace them with something other than dogs.
No, they're gonna put them out there.
it's GDOT right of way along Prince, along that section of Prince specifically. So ACC really isn't within their rights to plant in that right of
But
way.
you also wouldn't necessarily interfere or come find them if they were.
We're not going to spend any money on those trees, or at least in enforcement of those ones, unless they're cutting them down. Then I'll get upset.
Their
like-
question was that they have a couple of trees where watering has been an issue. The campaign has been very successful, but in this new campaign, there's a couple of spots they're worried about and wondered if there's a way that landscaping can help. I think that's the housing authority property. And so honestly, I think if we dig into it, it may just be a communication issue, because last time I called the housing authority and said, hey, because the tenants have water allowances. And so if they exceed the allowance, they're dinged, like in their rent is a water allowance and electric allowance. And any exceeding that, they're dinged. And so the residents
They
wouldn't
want
water.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we called the area manager, and the area manager allowed for that to happen. But I don't know that the area manager was aware of like the time length that we needed to do it. And then I believe there was a new tenant after a year. So the new tenant was like, no, they didn't know if that deal would extend to them. So would it be possible to help the Cobham Tree Committee would you be willing to be a liaison between the housing authority and the their tree committee?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I'd like to assist any way I can. Housing authority was pretty sociable with us.
They were,
We're-
when I talked to them, I was just getting to the right person whose job it was to manage that area.
Yeah.
I found that person, we're good.
Yeah.
I've also, I think I've emailed you. About John first, John Jefferson.
John Jefferson, yeah,
Who was married to Jane first.
right,
About the Boulevard
yes,
Neighborhood Association wanting to work with us to plant trees.
right. And, Mateo, you had a conversation with John, or I emailed John directly?
What was his name? Jefferson?
Yeah, John Jefferson.
It's spelled Jon. There is no H.
So the Cliff Notes was, and I know John very well. Yeah, plenty of the trees. We'll help you pick out varieties and recommend, we can help you with plantings and location. And, I keep adding things to Mateo's list of things he has to do. But, so I told him that for any of the facilitating, making sure that it's a healthy, successful planting, the council would love to participate.
Which organization are they with
Did he
again?
want to go have a or something?
He just wondered that he was discussing that, see what money we would.
Boulevard.
Part that's lots of fun.
I said, and you know, I mean, that's a fair ask. I just said.
Aren't
no.
they disadvantaged? I thought I saw them on the Justice,
Disoriented, not.
I think if they knew that we were working.
That's what I did, I made.
Yeah. Like, we're not.
But I also said, like, we'd love to help with the process, but it would be knowledge and.
Relative to the dogwoods, are any of them diseased? The ones that are not?
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
anthracnose is really common on them.
yes.
Um,
They lived along for a long time.
yeah.
Couple that they're gonna put there and then they'll get anthrax.
And on the tree species list, Mateo can certainly push back and say, hey, can you give me another species? And I can too. Ultimately, they can say, sorry, it's right here.
They
But
don't want to put it right in here.
And so that's the whole thing there with you. So, so I think that, I think that.
I'm just putting that out there.
I think Monica would be amenable to like,
Oh,
you
and-
know, and I mean, I think they would be, it's Teresa,
Yeah,
Carson and Monica Capasus and, Sue Customs are the primary drivers in that, and all of them would
some people.
be willing to talk other medium-sized trees.
Okay.
most
And
of
Boulevard.
them are.
Nice shade,
Yeah.
too.
And you have to just have
Yeah.
some kind of.
I've seen more and more service berries on roadsides.
Yeah.
They were really pretty nice.
Slow
They
down.
can get a little
That's-
multi-stem, so they can put it on
The fewer
height
plants.
at strong.
They know that it's only grown so many times, so they know that.
I know, but they, you know, that's this cat and mouse thing of who grow
It
those
is.
types. They grow those types because they're on the list of things that are okay to plant that you can get approved right away.
Yeah. it's-
People just have this idea about dog.
Yeah.
I think it really wants to be
With
dog.
no,
I don't think
very.
that's what was lying
How to make those add fluidity, and like, bringing those ideas about like, spring.
How many of them
Right?
I don't know how to make that up.
Or the one in front of the hospital got so big, you know.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think it's-
That was a champion thing.
Yeah, the dogwood that was chopped down at the hospital was the champion,
Yes. I went out to know.
What kind of champions?
Yeah.
state champion.
Don't.
That's how,
Yeah.
Still got six.
No, they needed to put a sign up.
No, they, it was that new bill. that
They killed a champion.
No,
tree
they-
with a sign.
That new, I thought it was the new bill, they have that western facing all glass window. I'm sorry, planning, what is that, why did you say yes to that one?
I think it was the sign actually before that expansion.
Yeah,
The big one that's like right in front of the pull-in, right near the helicopter pad. I'm pretty sure it was right there. I think it was.
they had a series of them right there on the street. And that.
They are doing a good job putting them.
Yeah.
I love the grasses.
The other thing was the letter. 'Cause
Yeah.
I promised Ren that we would have a response to her.
Oh, good. I'm gonna email it to her tomorrow and then actually try to put it in the mail. And actually have a copy that we can sign if everyone's okay with reading it. And so I only have 2 copies, but I can read it out loud if I want.
Yes, please.
Okay. So for Bryn Allen, I've been involved in a group many years ago called Founders Tree Trust. And they had something called the Tree Babies. Did plantings in Athens. They were like a proto tree council group. And that group dissolved, but they had about $12,000 in funds that Ren has been sole remaining custodian of, and so she's brought that to us. And one stipulation is that she would like Marianne Hodgson to have a memorial. And we don't anymore do memorial plantings, but we have an exception to receive these funds, made an exception. So we crafted a small letter, only took 3 months.
It's very well written.
Yeah,
In that 3 months. I'm sorry, I missed it,
Yeah,
but,
okay.
Georgiana should be lowercase.
And that should be either underlined or italicized.
So don't
Don't
sign
sign
it,
it.
or you can sign it, and then I will go to my glass door and copy your signature. If you don't have any objection to that, I do a lot in the office.
Gonna sign it, I would also include
Your,
my
yeah,
name and tree council president.
it's a, yeah, if you just want to have a signature on hand, a signature on file, I can make
send
that
it
work.
to you,
Yeah.
It has to be in blood, actually. So.
You know what, I can swing by your house.
That's good, I'll be there. It says, Dear Ren, I'm writing to share with you a proposal for a memorial planting and plaque in honor of Hodgson, founding member of Founders Tree Trust. Greatly appreciate your willingness to bring the remaining funds from the Tree Trust to the Tree Council so that we can continue the good work that your group began for our community canopy. Considered several locations, keeping in mind Marion's strong tie to the west side of Athens. Working with the forester, Mateo Fennell, the council thought the Welcome Center on North Thomas Street would be a prime location for 3 Quercus georgiana, a rare deciduous red oak native to the southeast, right off the page, that should thrive in that location. We'll include a plaque at the site to note Marion's, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that was my only suggestion.
That's a good one. Lifelong commitment to Athens that these trees honor, and would love your help to make the boarding capture the spirit of a welcoming community. The remaining funds would be used for plantings and maintenance of existing plantings. This is agreeable. The Community Tree Council with the forester will procure the trees with an eye to plantings being completed by winter of 2024. So appreciate your patience with our process and consideration of this very generous donation to the Athens Tree Council. Please let me know if you have any questions or require additional information.
I'd like to make the suggestion that we go ahead and determine when we're gonna plant these now, so that it doesn't get lost in the tree councilness of.
Could we maybe do it for
council.
Arbor Day?
That's what I was going to suggest, is that we do it for Arbor Day and just go ahead and include that in the letter.
Okay.
And again, it's not gonna necessarily cost us any money, so I don't really know that we need to vote on that.
And our Arbor Day in February, anyone know the date?
15th, isn't
I don't know.
I should know that.
Because,
Wow.
well, because I've planted a lot, but also because, you know, we're a lot earlier than National Arbor Day, right? They're in
Yes.
April, so it's always kind of this like kind of unusual date.
So I'm gonna say with an eye to planting, on Athens-Clarke County Arbor Day, February 15th.
Provided it's the 15th, yeah.
We already have permission to plant there.
I need to make sure with with Jeannie. I'm not sure if there will be any further complications to like,
If there's space there.
I think there is.
Been a long time since I've been there.
I do worry though, because I have seen signs of Ganoderma in that soil. So I wonder. I know a few of those trees have died with major cases of root rot. I know Rainbow Ecoscience is coming out with like a fungicide that will treat Ganoderma, but I don't know when that's coming out.
Do you feel is February too soon to get it in, to get the soil ready, or?
I don't think it's too soon, provided we get the permissions, but I'm not 100% sure how complicated that will be. So
Is there landscape?
we do, yeah.
So.
I would imagine it's up to Jeannie, but it might also be.
Yes. Like, and didn't she?
I think she was.
That she was like, oh yeah, it'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean it's just sitting there right now. It's nothing happening to it, so.
I know, she's gonna say, yeah. And she likes it.
Or did you?
The Georgia oaks, we've seen really good ones at Select Trees.
Okay.
And they're beautiful. They're beautiful.
For future reference, Georgia's Arbor Day, always the third Friday, February, so it changes. It's the 16th, but it has been the 14th and it has been the 15th.
So it's always the third Friday.
Yeah, it's always the third Friday. I
February.
thought it was the second, but when I just went and looked at the 16th, that's the third. So it's always a Friday. I did remember that.
It's always after Valentine's
Do
Day.
you remember it being on the
Just barely.
I love the trees? Yeah. Yeah.
I'll look more on that hill slope just to see, we'll see if we can find any utilities that would be there. So in the coming month, I'll be looking at that spot a lot, so.
I just hate to wait all the way until next winter to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've already had this.
Well, and if we tell her,
Well, we can,
winter of 20, I guess that
if
would.
we hit a snag, I will continue to communicate with Ren. If something happens and the soil's not amenable or the site's not good, and we won't take free. We'll keep her abreast of.
Well, and technically winter of 2024 should be December.
Yep.
2024.
True.
I would rather do it in February, go ahead and check that off the list, but if we always push it back.
Do we want to vote on that? No, wait a minute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Yeah.
I didn't think you counted, but okay.
Yeah, I count as a voting member.
And we had somebody else come in. So.
Yep.
Thank you with that.
Woo-hoo.
I'm looking to accept and send the letter to Ren,
Yes.
and I'll send it electronically and
As edited.
as that
36.
with changes so noted today, which Ellen is Mary thing, and so Ida planning on Arbor Day and the correct notation.
Seconds?
Hey, really quick, one more note about MLK Day. I kind of vaguely mentioned the Firefly Trail, so if anyone has a preference, like for where along the Firefly Trail, how many trees?
We have to find out where the.
Yeah, and where the artwork goes.
Yeah, beforehand. Yes.
Mateo, I task you with.
Finding the art. Okay. Sometimes I figure it out and then it's wrong. So.
And then we love you.
Before and.
There, I mean, I should have said and or, the Greenway, because there is also that new section.
Cemetery might be contentious.
Well, I mean, before.
We have right of way on it. I wonder how much,
I'm sure you'd have to negotiate with the Honey Hill. You can't just.
which is really tough. Like they do not want anything. They hate that trail. So
Yeah.
that's like that's the feeling I got from.
Don't love spending there.
We can spend there. We can spend the money. So, all right. Well, so I had seconds from Mary and Lauren, voting for ayes. Any nays? All right, so we accept the letter to Red Allen then, okay.
Was very careful about that.
He was
Particular. Andrew Saunders reached out to me just before the meeting, and really wanted us to possibly discuss some things that are going to be brought up to the Planning Commission here real soon. And Wick has a pretty good understanding of what changes they want to make, so I was hoping we could discuss it, or at least have Wick tell us about them. I think last meeting, we sent a letter out about the library solar project, wanting to just be an advisory board, because that's what one of the main aspects of the tree council. And I think this is a perfect one as well. A perfect example of when I think we should let our expertise be known. We may have a lot of differing opinions on this one, but Wick is probably the best one to explain it to us. So
I will attempt to do so. I have some sheets here, but I'm gonna keep one. There are 5 others, and then I think it would be helpful to.
You can use a board if you want.
Yeah, I think that would help.
Channel your inner middle school teacher.
I know, seriously. Let's see. Y'all be reading that, and we'll see if we have a marker that makes a work. Let's see.
So this is a discussion that the mayor and commission started about a year ago,
I think this is with the planning commission.
but
So this
set about the thing that happened next to Walmart.
this comes from Public Works. So Public Works is beneath us, literally not beneath us. They're the office beneath us. And they are roads and stormwater management and other things. But those are 2 biggies. So when a plat comes in for a subdivision, then of course you have many different departments reviewing that plat, just as you would have planned. And they, in their little group, wanted to make things easier with regards to managing the flow of water between parcels. So before 2 years ago, the developer could come in and they could clear, for the road, and they could clear for stormwater management area, and they could do other clearing. But then, let's say these are the lots, and so on and so forth, but let's use those 3 lots. They couldn't clear anything on this lot until somebody bought that lot. That was kind of how things were done. So when a tree plan comes in, they have conserved and planted. And in a residential setting, we have, let's say they wanted to conserve, let's say, there, and the rest of this was forested. They wouldn't be able to clear back to here. They would have to keep everything until somebody bought that lot. Okay, so I think that's pretty clear. So now what we are, I think it's pretty clear. What do y'all think? Are y'all good so far?
Yeah.
So now, instead of doing that, they're able to just kind of mass grade. I think it says 25 acres, right? They're pretty much able to mass grade this whole thing. Now that comes with the caveat of the tree management plan.
I was gonna say, did they mass grade with does that bulldoze out all the trees?
They can
Depends on the
now
zoning.
bulldoze trees on lots before they sell them. The reason they're doing that, and I tried to explain it well in there, it's not my explanation, all of it, a lot of it's Public Works, by Bob Fawcett, who works in Public Works, which is water faucet.
Spelled the same.
No, it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
So what was happening is the person who came in first, they were doing all this and they were getting everything to flow here and it was cool, right? But it was only like flowing before they messed with the other lot. And so as each person came in, it was a different contractor, right? You know, somebody comes in 1 year, somebody comes in 2 years, somebody comes in 5 years, and what they were getting was they were getting water going downhill on some of these lots and impacting people's basements and their houses and their yards, and the water flow started changing as they developed, right? So that was the whole idea behind this is a plat. Now, when it comes in, they can manage all of that water flow at once so that no parcel will drain onto another parcel. Now, it doesn't mean they don't have to do a tree management plan. What it means is, so if we have, I don't know if these numbers are correct, but for simplicity's sake, we'll have conserved and planted on each lot. So each lot has to have, let's say, 40% of the lot covered by trees and 10% of those trees to be these trees conserved. That was kind of the old standard. And then you got those for each lot, right? Then you had an overall plan for all of this. And let's say these were never lots. These are just conserved trees because they needed conserved trees. And then here are some planted trees. They have these numbered per lot, and then something like for overall, it might be like, let's just say 50-20 split.
So many questions.
Okay, yeah, I'm not a concise teacher. So back in the old days, we would add this to this total number, right? You wouldn't make them do double, right? You'd say, okay, you got these, this is conserved, nobody's gonna build here, and these add up on your numbers and planted, and we'll put street trees here, and street trees count towards planted, and everything's good. The problem with that was not just with like water, the problem with trees with that is once it becomes a single family residence, then you can clear cut and there's nothing stopping you from clear cutting everything but the street trees. So I buy this lot and it's like, well, I don't like this. That's part of my conserved canopy that I agreed on tree management. It doesn't matter.
But isn't it say you're supposed to leave a certain amount of tree
Only
cover?
during the construction of it.
Yeah.
After.
Once it gets a certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, then you-
Because I remember going to a hearing about somebody who was cutting down trees in his lot to make a driveway.
It was probably street trees. Street trees are different.
They weren't, they were all over his lot. It wasn't just by the
Well,
street.
there's
But maybe I don't know what the definition is.
anybody can remove 5 trees without letting anybody know as long as they're not street trees at any time
It was kind of
during the year. So when it becomes more than that, typically they submit a timber management plan.
Yeah.
If they don't submit a timber management plan and they're doing more than 5, when we go out, it's like a single family residence. And unless it's like in your face, we're not going to give them a lot of grief.
Yeah.
Now, commercial is different. And so it's like employment, industrial or something
Right,
like
and I
that.
remember having to go and speak at the hearing on behalf of the tree council. We haven't done that in years.
There was probably more than 5 trees. They were probably.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely more than 5.
Somebody complained about it, and so they're gonna be, so typically, unless,
Wealthy and others.
Okay, well,
if somebody complains about it, and calls code.
I think one of his
enforcement,
neighbors complained.
that's-
Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, because people cut down more than 5 trees all the time and don't submit a management plan. It only gets sent to us or,
Right.
planning if somebody complains.
So it's good for water, for homeowners and water management. It can be bad for conserved trees on the property. It is. It can be good because if we're gonna give the rights to the trees and the conserved canopy, like this number, like, okay, you kind of hack away at it over time and we end up with 25 total, right? Then what we have been doing is we're saying, okay, well, you still got to have conserved for the plat, right? For the new subdivision. Like we're not changing this 50/20. So they've got to find places to put conserved that can't be touched. And I personally think that's good. I think the idea of piecemealing your conserved canopy on lots, it could be good. It could not be, it can be not so good. Of course, this can be planted pine and that not be so good either, but it will remain in perpetuity. So that's one thing, that's an adaptation that we've made to that, I think that can be beneficial. The last thing, and I hope this isn't too confusing, I apologize, but I'm like the worst detailed planner ever, is when they can't meet the conserved canopy, this 20, right? Because they say, we're mass grading. And the letter comes in, it says Public Works, because of mass grading and water management, yada, 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 we are mass grading, so we cannot meet this because it doesn't work out, because we're trying to build out the lot, because we have perceptions about when we want money and returns and all that kind of stuff. And it's usually shorter, right? Because you want your money back. So they're maximizing that space. They will ask for a tree waiver, a conserved canopy waiver. We could say no, like if Brad Griffin, the planning director, were such a mind, he'd be like, tough. And then they would lose a lot or two. But that's not how our planning department rolls here. And that's fine. It's not a bad thing. It's just a thing. It's how it's run. So what Brad typically will do in this situation, what we've done over 2 or 3 during my 7 months here is, so it's a tit for tat now, right? Like we can't do it because Public Works and we're coming to you asking for a conserved waiver. So that tells us like, okay. So then Brad will make them go a lot of times 8 to 10% on top of whatever this 50 is.
So make them plant back even
for
more.
planted. And so let's say it was 50/20, Brad will say, okay, you gave me 10 and you're still giving me 50, but now I want it to be 60 to 10.
And those planting requirements can be included on the private lots.
Well, they have to have street trees. So that's where they'll put a bunch of them. But on a recent plan that was submitted, or plat, a pre-plat that was submitted, they put some back here in the back of the lot, 2 or 3 in the back of the lot, which gets us back to like the property owner still has control of those trees, but sometimes you run out of places to put them, right? Because the more parcels you have, the better your return, the less open space you're going to have. So that is a really, I should have timed myself. I haven't been teaching for a little bit. But that is
The tree conservation standard.
11 minutes, Wick.
Standard is that, what standard, what year is that standard then? Is it 2019, 2004?
the tree conservation came in with the tree management ordinance.
So that's fairly old, like that particular standard?
It is, and so what they're gonna do is, and of course, y'all are able to give your opinion. I was talking to Bruce Lonnie, the assistant planning director before this. This is more about your opinion. You know, this is not you vote whether to deliver it to the planning commission or not. This is about how Athens-Clarke County departments work together, because we both have different needs, both public works and trees. And if you look on the back, it takes each lot and it says, okay, we're still going to make you maintain this. This was lot specific, right? We're still going to make you do 40. We're still going to make you plan up to 40, and we're still going to do 50/20, where we're going to X that for every individual lot, which, by the way, there are like 4 classifications, I think, aren't there? So the bottom 2 we're 0 to start with. So it's really just dealing with fairly large, um, actually,
And not,
subdivision.
but not dense, so this isn't about density, this is single family housing, this is RS.
RS 40.
Okay.
Which is
Yeah.
pretty large, like an acre, and RS 25, which is a half acre more or less.
RS 40 has some protections already built in, right, by nature of that. No, I guess it doesn't, sorry, I was thinking AR. That one.
So RS 40, or what is residential? Is that RS? Is that what you
Yeah.
RS?
Single family, yeah. So it would be new.
The 40 is referring to what?
40 is referring to the size of the parcel that's typically developed in there. It doesn't, it would be like 40,000 square feet
Yeah.
approximately, or approximately 1 acre. Like Green Acres, a lot of it, that's where I live, are RS 25s, for example. A lot of new ones that are going in are like RS 15s and RS 5s because you know, you
People
see
want,
people.
You want to sell a lot of properties,
Yeah.
so you want it to
And
be
so
zoned that way.
Well, it's expensive.
The 0 was already there for the smaller ones anyway, so those aren't going to see any changes. So it's going to impact these larger subdivisions, which I don't know a lot about this kind of stuff, but you know, larger subdivision, larger lot, or larger lot in the subdivision, probably the greater chance they're going to want trees, right? I mean, you don't pay a lot of money necessarily for a half acre, an acre,
Yeah.
the grass that you have to mow, right?
and not want trees. So
Typically, the developer can see a return on that kind of initial planting. That's typically.
A street tree.
It's a higher
Yeah.
value for the property. You know what I mean?
so
You'll take the responsibility off the single family, but then the developer in the early planning will have to meet and then they'll have to place it in lots that will never be developed. So they won't lose that conservative.
well, well, they don't have to, and
They don't have to.
they can't give us like a 50-0 and say we're not going to conserve anything.
Right.
I mean, they could, but it's unlikely. Usually they find some space around.
Some space to consider.
So it might be like 50, like half of the conserved canopy. Here's half, and I'm going to make up the other half plus the 8 to 10% of newly
And
planted.
they're like mitigation or they're trees that had to go back.
It's not the best scenario, but our tree management plan, it jives with this approach. Our tree management plan is geared more towards the future than preserving what is here. I mean, it does preserve what is here, but my interpretation and what Brad has told me, it's really planting for the future. And so it does kind of dovetail with that as it exists right now.
Okay, but it doesn't necessarily force them to put aside land for the conserved tree canopy and never sell those lots. Like,
Well-
build that into their overall master plan.
We already have that. So like depending on the zoning, you have to have a certain amount of conserved canopy.
Okay.
I think there's only one that has 0% conserved. That's like industrial, right?
Well, agricultural and industrial.
Yeah. So, you know, those zones, they don't have to conserve anything. They could just bulldoze it.
Our plan is 0, that's the goose egg.
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you know, for the vast majority, they have something that they have to come up to conserve. And we really like that. You know, we'd want to conserve our upland assemblage of trees. When I'm thinking of this, the one positive that I see about this potential change is like I see it from my ecologist's mindset. So, you know, typically you've got all these lots and each one has to have, let's say 20% of that lot is conserved canopy. And so, you know, we've got a little circle of conserved canopy here. Maybe it's continuous with these other ones as well. But if we piecemeal it and we have to get 20% on every single one of the lots conserved, all in all, that's kind of a disconnected canopy. And what I see with this is if now the developer sees a point in saying, okay, well, we're going to save all of this area here. You know, maybe that's not a very developable site. Maybe it's got horrible terrain, or maybe there's a stream that goes by, something like that. then I think ecologically speaking, the benefit of having a one contiguous 40% of conserved canopy is better than this checkerboard 40%.
So that one thing though in developing is the topography. And masquerade, when you build the building, most of the time, you, whatever the topography is, you level the spot where the building's gonna go. So like in that, I mean, that looks all flat, but it's not all flat. Somebody's at the top of the hill, somebody's at the bottom of the hill. If you do mass grading, and so it's kind of, that complexity is actually good, and so for placement of buildings, for size of the structures, or garages, for where the driveway goes. And when you mass grade, you are all at once leveling
Yeah,
the sites.
yeah, that's,
That could be a,
well, it is
problem.
it is a problem, but that's happening all over.
It's
And so to Mary's point, if you've got, so you've got this is way more information.
We're here for it. Yeah.
We have a sewer line, right?
Yeah.
And so that's our most valuable property. So a lot of this may be outside the sewer line. I'm not sure, because you can put septic on an RS40 and RS25.
nobody wants that. People want to be tied into.
But still, this is where they're going to put maybe a larger subdivisions. But to Mary's point, what is happening is the developable land inside the sewer ring is on the hillside, and that is where our mixed deciduous forest that grew since cotton farming is. And so when they push it back, the original slopes here, and when they here your beautiful white oaks and hickories, yada yada. When they push it back and put a retaining wall up, they are getting rid of a lot of that sloped forest where the trillium might be underneath the white oak and the dogwood and the redbud. And that
Just pulling at the heartstrings with the trillium wick, gosh.
I wonder, and we've talked a little bit before, like, I didn't hear you go as far as, I mean, frankly, first of all, I'm very excited that Public Works is bringing this forward as a concept of,
they aren't bringing it forward.
oh, you guys are,
We are bringing it
you're bringing it to them.
This has been going on for 2 years.
Okay, yeah. I'm
We're
just-
trying to match our code
Okay,
so that it's
So,
not confusing.
and so it may be not reaching a threshold, but for this kind of development, but we have been having conversations about fee and lieu and about potential percentage. So as we do like the least worst thing and the least worst thing kind of in developing this, to sneak in a little fee as so somebody can make it 60%, and we're going to allow that, reach the rest of the 40% of what we would ideally like to have, they can't do, making these kind of trade-offs, a fee in lieu, so that elsewhere we can continue to try to make the canopy as robust as possible.
It is.
And so I know for very dense things, that would be an easy ask, but is this somewhere where we can begin, these kind of neighborhood developments, we begin to ask that kind of fee structure?
I think that is for the future. I don't think that's an ask for this particular one. I could be wrong. This one is gonna go, the planning commission, will vote on it. They'll probably, I would have to imagine, vote yes on it. And I had to guess, I have no idea. Like I said, I've been in the job 7 months, but, as I put in an email to you, over this year, there'll be a chance to suggest 8 to 10 amendments from which they might choose however many. And a fee in lieu, that could go into that one for this year.
Yeah, I definitely.
That we might put in some more robust, protections for conserved canopy and stuff like that. But that is kind of the, of the 350 current acres, I think around 360 or something, that are slated to be removed, or have been removed in my 7 months. A lot of them are these these,
Sheer, like,
these slopes. It's for making more space. It's also because retaining walls and stormwater, or not retaining walls, but stormwater management areas are a higher priority because of, than our treatment, than our tree code, because they're state and federal. And when they have to put in a stormwater management area, that is going into that old part that nobody wanted to develop, which is why the bigger trees are there. And so, it's not true of all the 360 acres, but it, certainly when you go out and walk the site, you do have to kind of be like, oh.
So they don't try to save any of the old trees at all, they just bulldoze.
Well, they do, they can, and they do, but I'm saying typically the oldest and largest trees are in the same area where the retention pond's going, or they're on a slope in a really tight site where they're trying to push out the buildable area, the flat area, and get rid of that slope, which then gets rid of that habitat or growing area.
so that's something I've been thinking about a lot about, like that, I agree with you, and we have conversations about how, you know, we're out of balance with the, allowances for the built environment. But I think what might be missing is like that there's still this kind of nostalgia that the trees are not part of the built environment. You know, I mean, that we need to rebalance trees as part of the built environment. Like we've put all these trees there. You know, these trees they're not by accident. We don't have an old growth forest. And so that we have to consider, if we can have the language be considering it part of the built environment, instead of it being left out of the built environment.
Well,
I
and I
think
will,
keeping it out makes it seem like it doesn't have a value.
well, no, I will say,
Proactive approach to thinking about site planning in terms of the trees rather than like site planning in terms of what makes the most sense in terms of drainage. You know, if you're looking at the site, going in saying, we have these beautiful old growth trees, how do we build what we want to build around them instead of saying, what's the cheapest, most efficient way to make this site drain well? You know, like that is not gonna ever benefit.
Well, the example I gave to Lauren, we were talking about this the other day at the policy meeting, was, so like we're doing a build in the historic district, and per the client's request, it's a garage and house. And we had angled the garage to conserve the maximum number of trees. And historic preservation wouldn't let us angle the building because it was more important to them to have the buildings be aligned. And so that's a weight of design decision that I want to keep pushing back against, that there is as much design value for the neighborhood to keep the trees. And even if the trees go, it'll be a planted area, it won't be a building area. And that has a value, especially for the adjacent lots, because it's backed up against a bunch of other houses, and it could always be green space versus now, you know, and so it's a matter of like valuing the spaces, you know, because you have to, I mean, you think we have trouble with affordable housing. You build affordable housing where you don't make a flat space for the house, and people don't ask.
well, and our Brad Griffin, he always says, you know, when I bring him on these things, it's like, you know, nothing in our code says that the trees must be considered last in the plan. And
We're not doing anything to encourage.
Right.
it.
well, we are, it's that, and I've said that to, design teams from Williams or Carter Engineering or whoever, any of them. When they get in a bind and they're complaining about it, and I say that to them, there's nothing saying that trees shall be considered last. So we do have that. What we have with our tree plan and what Mateo and I talked about with former arborists who are in the planning department, and when we got to sites and stuff, is that it's a quantity-based plan. It's not a quality-based plan. There are quality parameters built into it or requirements built into it, but it's mainly a quantity thing. So you got that's a big can of worms that we might unpack over this next year in order to get some more quality in there. But then you also have a can of worms of what nurseries are actually growing, for example.
Oh, yeah.
And planting back and all that kind of stuff. So this is
some of these existing trees.
So
Some of them are giant water oaks that are dropping huge limbs and covered in wisteria and.
So I understand this, and I understand the need to prevent drainage improvement agreements because they cost the county a lot of money. Which it results from like what the previous scenario, you know, individual lots being graded individually. However, what I am understanding from this is you're basically asking for a change in the ordinance. And the ordinance belongs to us, the tree council. It's our ordinance. We make changes to it, from what my understanding is. We don't ever make changes to the ordinance because it's a long, complicated process, as Mary is finding out. And you're asking for the one change in the ordinance that we make in the last 10 years to be reducing the conservation requirement, which goes against kind of our values as the tree council, which is to preserve and protect the community trees. I cannot in good conscience make the one change to the ordinance besides updating the tree species list be a reduction in the canopy requirement. However, if we can come to a consensus on some sort of language to the added benefit of the canopy, that's the only way I can get behind making a change to the ordinance to include that language.
Well, first of all, I think what you said, I'd have to double check. I've read what you read, but it was explained to me like this is not having to do with the tree council. Like this.
It says we propose that the ACC community tree management ordinance be amended.
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're talking about and I know what you're referencing, but I'm telling you what I've been told is this is between ACP departments. It's not necessarily, I mean, I could be totally off, but I asked that very question because I knew that somebody would ask that when I came here.
Yeah. They changed the ordinance without our input.
They can't do it without our input, but they can do it in spite of our input.
Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
But to Jess's point, I look at this is that the original subdivision developer is the shortest term investor in the process. Yep. And so put all of that water management on them concerns me of the short-term nature of their part of the process. Like most, and like Green Acres, good example, like, and like going down College for the river is like, the problems they're having with water now is people adding in like impervious driveways and the street's been paved so many times that it runs over this, you know, it doesn't make gutter. And so there's longer term issues with where the water goes. And I do worry all of the responsibility just being in the first short term beginning of what is typically a very long term.
I hear you. Same here. When I see a plat or pre-plat, I'm thinking the same thing. I'm pro trees. I think this is not a hill to die on.
Oh, yeah.
It's, as I mentioned before, we're talking half-acre lots and acre lots in subdivisions. They're going to be way more expensive than RS-15s and RS-8s, which is all that's going in right now. This is not a hill to die on. Should we be worried about a precedent? Perhaps.
That's my concern.
But
it's not a hill to die on, but like it's a very minor change that will not really ultimately impact the tree canopy. However, if we take this language as written, then and that's the only change that we make to the ordinance, then I don't think that we fulfilled our job as the tree council.
I also think there's a perception thing. I mean, I know a couple developers. The perception is not going to be a pro tree. You know what I'm saying? Like the perception is that, ooh,
Pro development.
this is fantastic.
well,
And I'm not sure.
it's already been going on for 2 years, and that's what I'm
Right.
saying. It's baked in at this point.
But to change the I don't know, I just kind of feel like it just adds another layer of like, oh, we keep that.
What it does is it gets it. What it will do, perhaps, maybe, maybe not. This is my feeling. Is that right now we asked for this 62. We're saying, okay, you've got, the conserved canopy that you could find here that would bring this up to 20. You're not able to find it because you're wanting to mass grade. So that gives us the ability to ask for the 62, right? Yeah.
Ask for more.
Everybody agree with that? If we,
Are planted trees.
if
Well,
we,
typically those trees don't impact, like, they're not in the center of the neighborhood, they're not.
hold on, let me finish. Because I stare at these things and that's my job. What I anticipate, the conserved canopy it is a hill to die on. It's very complicated and you're gonna get a shit ton of pushback. And that's why I think I've been thinking about it since I got there, because I come from an environmental education and ecology education, and I work for UGarden. I'm pro trees.
Love trees.
But it's going to be a difficult nut to crack, and I think that's why the tree council needs to get on the horse and start thinking about it. And this is, I was told, over the next year we might be able to, like, this is the time to do it because it's the 20th anniversary. I think get close to. Yeah. I think 13 is when they adopt, or 03 is when they adopted it. 5 is when it really came in. So that is imperative. Meanwhile, this, what it can do is, I think when it takes out this and they're like, hey, it's not just about mass grading anymore. Like we don't have to find any conserved canopy on here. Then you lose kind of the stick to make them plant more trees, if that makes sense. Like right now they're coming to us like, oh, we know we're supposed to do this, even though the ordinances are at heads with each other. And we're saying, okay, plant more trees. I think we might lose some of that ability here. The conservative number might not change, but they might just be able to get away with 50.
Do you see a way with that this would allow for more contiguous canopy? I mean, do you see?
Yeah, I do.
That's been my concern, is that it keeps getting chopped up, and I'd love it if we could have increase corridors of connection.
I do think that, and I think that if we.
What's the avenue for that, other than they can't do it on individual lots? What's written into what's the verbiage that actually pushes them in the direction of conserving?
Well, maybe you get the ear of your commissioner, because it's got to go through the planning commission. But then if they approve it, which they may not, but if they say yes, then it's got to go to the mayor commission, right? And mayor commission has to still approve it. So if mayor commission says, oh, we had some chats about this. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. They're like, you have to find conserve somewhere on that property. Like you have to get the 50-20. You're not getting around that 20, and you are going to get more contiguous.
My experience of the politics of it is that if you weighing in at the planning commission is way more productive than weighing in at the mayor commission. By the time the mayor commission gets it, they are not going to get into the weeds of if this is correct as far as absolute process. They're going to trust that the individuals whose job this is have brought them something that is good process. But the planning commission is a spot where you could say, like, I just think you'd have a more viable conversation with concerns about like touching the tree ordinance like this. And they're the ones that may be like where we're talking about rebalancing the idea of what's included in a built environment, to say like, hey, the looking at water without thinking about how we maintain these corridors of connection is not viable for water either, so that's also not good for water management. We don't have. So I think you have better luck with planning commission. By the time it gets to mayor and commission, they're going to say yay or nay. They're not going to.
I don't know. I mean, sometimes we suggest stuff to planning commission as a no. Planning commission says yes, it goes to mayor commission, and they say no. Or sometimes it's a no, yes, yes, or yes, no, no. I mean, it's not as cut and dry as that hasn't been my experience, but a lot of times we'll make recommendations to the planning commission is like, no, we don't think this is a good idea as planners, and they say we need more affordable housing.
Yes.
So in this one, I think it's a little bit more of a compromise, and
affordable housing can still be in a nice neighborhood. I mean,
it
you
can
have a tree on the property.
It can.
To be honest, no one's defined affordable housing. So everyone in their mind, affordable housing is a different picture. And
Yeah.
I'll give you a case recently, if you go on Old Lexington Road and and you go down the hill past the the entryways to Crestwood and Green Acres, you go down the hill and you're starting to go up the hill and there's a pond on your right and you keep on going up the hill and there's a beautiful pasture.
I heard it's gonna be turned into houses soon.
Big subdivision.
So that whole property, like it goes back a little bit, it goes back a ways. It's not an RS 40 or RS 25, but it's an RS 15. So they didn't have to meet anything on any of those parcels. But they still gave us a crap ton of conserve, like they totally meant they
I know that
conserve
developer.
and went over. And then they still had to like plant street trees in their subdivision. So it was a case where not every plat that comes in, it has to be a nightmare. Like some of them actually work and
That developer wanted to actually do some courtyard scenarios that got shut down by the planning commission because the way the building's based and, so they would have done more trees.
I can ask and talk to Brad and Bruce a little bit more about kind of the question I asked before I came over here and then what you brought up and kind of see, what the next steps, have been in the past as far as that goes. And
I want, I would, if we're going to make an amendment like that, I would want there to be language. Further language that's just saying no longer requiring conserved canopy.
Yeah, can't say that.
It can't say that.
The verbiage, that's a question of
Yeah.
verbiage, it's just.
I
do. Even the language out to be like, not change conserve canopy or, but like.
Need to work on
Have it be where we are not saying that. I think that it is a perception of taking away the requirement, even though that's not exactly what's happening, it's moving it. Make it more clear that language can indicate that the requirement is the same, where it is on the property is different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing is that if we've got a 100-acre plot,
Could be good because individuals want that.
yeah, I mean, if we've got a 100-acre plot and they're required to conserve 40%, well, in the old way, then each of those lots would have had to have 40% conserved. And then at the end of the day, if no variances were granted, you'd have 40 acres of canopy. With this, they still have to conserve 40 acres, but it's just not going to be, there's not going to be 40% of each lot that's getting conserved. So you still have 40 acres of conservation, but is there any way that we could add something else onto this where we get more trees?
I would, if you go to the back, it's this paragraph right here, I think that you want to look at.
Yeah.
That's the paragraph I have a problem with.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying that
See what?
that's where the.
Which is really about. Make it clear that, the trees, is there a way for the trees to be a viable option towards better water management?
They always appreciate trees like the people downstairs.
Well, I know, but that also won't let me plant them in the detention.
No, you
ponds.
can. You can't find them in detention ponds. You have to be.
There's certain ones that you can do. I've been figuring that
You
out.
have to be certain distance from the outfall and you have to be.
Away from the toe of the dam. And
Or that is, difficult to manage, more undetermined, not clear path, and other than the benefit that.
Well, you do the meeting with them, right? You have a
Yes,
pre, you have
yeah,
a pre-meeting where you're supposed to go over all that and ask
Right.
questions.
But-
With someone. Well, I'm just saying, we can't have it both ways, right? We can't be
Yeah.
a developer and.
I do think the language is sort of starkly towards like, this is about water, and we're not gonna do this on the individual lots anymore because that's better for the water.
Right.
Which implies that
Trees aren't as important.
For the water.
conservation.
Yeah, that,
Or the,
And they are.
Retention.
important for the water.
Well,
Well, the ordinance would also be taken out of context of your beautiful drawing.
It did get a little messy, yeah.
You know, if we were gonna make a change, I think it would need to be made very explicit that it is a very specific change
Mhm.
that could not be misinterpreted in any other way either, you know, so.
Well, WIC will be the one interpreting it. When the developers send it in and they say, hey, this is what we're conserving, WIC is the one that says,
Somewhere else.
what is the minimum?
that's true, true.
Scared to do one.
So like,
7 months
is
anyway.
the 1010 Overthorpe considered a subdivision development, or is, what are the, what are our parameters as far as like, because most of the, it'll, no, and I do wonder, like, how. Oh my God.
Come up with that.
Is that, so the York development that's by Bishop where, you know, they actually just, you know, they have a line of trees, kind of back trees, and they met all the requirements, but, they, in that mass grade, everything in that grading is, substandard, but it's also graded in development in such a way that putting back, encouraging individual homeowners have the access to plant a tree. Because that's a sort of a, I talked to Matt Hall about, but like on 1010 also is like a problem where like if you leave homeowners room to plant, eventually they will plant.
Mhm.
You know, they may not, but they can't if they
And
don't have
it
it.
seems unfair that their lots get graded and,
So they don't need to have the.
and then they have to, because I'm curious about, can't remember what's in the tree side, you know, like.
You have to have a large tree every 30 feet of street frontage.
But, and then the sort of ecological responsibility is put back on the homeowner to reforest their.
Or not.
Or not, and I know, you know, that a lot of the tree, you know, sites may not be.
But if you're grading, you're disturbing the whole soil
Yeah.
profile. and
Oh,
everything.
Yeah, and all the good stuff comes off and doesn't go back.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's why, and that's why I,
The soil on site?
well, no, I mean,
Well-
and that's why I reiterate, you know, yes, more specificity as far as recommendations and what the tree council recommends and being active, about it. But keeping an eye towards, I mean, the game is much larger than this. And I don't know that the precedent that this sets dealing again with RS40 and RS20, granted, the RS15 did have a requirement, but like if you're below 12,500 square feet, you don't have a conservative requirement, and the RS15 can't go below 12,500 square feet. So we're really talking about the 25 and the 40s.
So we need to put that in there specifically.
So we need to work on the
Well, it's
verbiage,
in there.
the language just needs to be right.
Well, but I mean, I would recommend that energy be put into this, but I would recommend that more energy be put in
Two recommendations.
to the 8
Yeah.
amendment recommendations that you could possibly make in this year. So I'm just saying, like, if it's a matter of,
Policy so far is like 3, and then we were just talking about.
Well, I was thinking for the precedent.
I have a recommendation too, though, is that if we are going to put our stamp of approval on this
mhm.
with different language, I propose that we include several other changes
Yep.
as a package.
So we
We're planning on giving some.
to like submit a letter that would be to the mayor and commission that goes with the Indian Mayor Commission about after this year. Separate letter to planning saying.
I don't know who all's seen it. I sent Mary a letter, kind of like some of my observations on like things that I'd like to change that Wick and I have been discussing for quite some time.
Yes.
I can send that out to everyone.
And
On the ordinance.
Yeah.
to reduce a requirement, I would love to see a matching increase requirement.
That's for a fee in lieu. I don't know.
And
what
that's,
the level
that's,
is
I was
for fee
thinking
in
the
lieu.
same thing when you were saying that the Bruce said, like, okay, we'll give us 62 on the planting side. That could become.
Like meet this or,
But when you're bringing us,
Any green space of some sort.
yeah,
Is this, so the premise behind this is that they will mass grade and they will contour and it'll be hardened in where the drain and the flowway is? Because
no,
if that, but that's what they say is fix it. Is that what the intent is? But then there's a lot, so the intent is that if they can take everything off
mhm.
at one time and mass grade, that they won't have water runoff issues and water retention issues later on, but that's not really the case because each individual lot will be developed at different times and they'll be greatly different. Like their stormwater during times will be in the right place and
Yeah.
things like that, but
yeah, I still wonder about.
I would assume the levels of the land will remain the same, like they're not gonna grade, like remove topography or add it, but then, yeah, they're gonna be putting in the foundation
So this is,
and, yeah, that kind of stuff.
No, so for the mass grading, it's just prepping the site for utilities road. And so they will in fact make a flat spot that is approximately 1,800, maybe 2,400, because you gotta get the trucks around it and concrete stuff's gotta be able to come in. So they do
Okay.
need, the site prep is for the building, and they don't hardscape that, they don't, foundation would come, I mean, they would have to build every house all at once. So right now, they don't mass grade because they don't build every house all at once.
Mhm.
They develop the subdivision typically in phases.
yeah,
And so they would still develop the subdivision in phases. So the structure wouldn't be there until that phase is appropriately funded or sold or whatever, but the grading would have happened.
Mhm.
So that could be a problem.
it recently, a plane's been going back and forth off Tallahassee. And it kind of looks like this is Tallahassee up here. It's Tallahassee,
Oh,
and
this
it,
one.
and it comes in, and so if you were to imagine a contour leading, like this is your low point. So it comes down this way and down this way. So this is a big, this has creek like that. And so this is, they have conserved all this, right? Because they have to conserve.
Right, within
Oh.
100 feet or whatever of.
Right. And they have to do, and it's just not prime, it would cost a lot. So, but how this ordinance or how this change plays into it is, so the lots are like this. They kind of come around like this. And there's some on this side, there's some over there, but
Relatively classic shape there.
so.
This is the hickory place, isn't it?
Yeah, and so.
They expect like hickories out of the.
So
out of the eaves on
here,
this one.
here's where the natural topography runs at the back of these lots. And from this point on, it goes downhill. So what they did was, well, that's a lot of the lot,
Looks like my lot.
So they said, I would much rather push out the lot to here and get rid of this canopy and then have more of the lot to build on and then plant it back. And so we were like, okay, and this coincided with the mass grading and making it easier and all this kind of stuff. So they proposed to, on this now reformed, denuded slope, human created slope, they proposed planting, a crap ton of trees. It was like this. I mean, they were planting back a forest.
I had to zoom way in to see
of
separate trees.
It was, they just because we were like, hey, remember that, tit for tat? And they planted all this stuff. And what they chose which was great. It was awesome. They chose mockernut hickory and shagbark hickory and pignut hickory and water hickory. And of those four, the only thing that's ever grown in a nursery that reaches a 2-inch caliper, which is what we require, is a water hickory. The other three, they won't be able to find one of them, much less I think one of them.
Hundreds of them.
Hundreds of shagbark hickories, which I used to go by the name shagbark in California at a nature center, so I was like, cool.
Measure the
Um,
change.
um,
Were there any oaks? I mean, it was all hickory?
Yeah, it's all hickory for them.
well, they scattered maybe one oak in there, but the only oak you can find is a Shumard or an overcoat. It's not like you're planting white oaks. It's hard to find red oaks, nobody's growing like northern red oaks, and some people are, but not a lot. Nobody's growing southern red oaks. So, Mateo and I talked with Mateo about it, and we were like, let's just go ahead and prove it, knowing that they're not gonna be able to find any of those
Yeah,
hickories.
we'll see what they do.
Because then when they come back to us, we'll be like, oh, you can't find the hickories, then we might be able to push them towards
Things that we
certain
want.
species.
Yeah.
But this is it was impacted by this because they played the masquerading card, the water, when really what they were saying was, we wanted to extend the lots
To make it flat.
to make it flat, to make it easier to build on and to make more surface to build on. And so that was,
Don't
There's
discount
trees
easier to build
never-
on. It's crazy expensive when it's on.
trees are always last.
The trees are always last.
They are always last.
Wait, in the interest of time, several of us need to leave. This has been a really great discussion. Just real quick. This was sent out in October and it's just now being brought to our attention. Does this mean that we really don't have a say in any of this?
Andrew's gonna request that the planning commission table this until the next meeting. I don't know if that'll happen, but
What you are presenting to us is something that we would just be more aware of. This is direction's happening, and then we take the awareness, that this is the direction planning is going, and perhaps our recommendations may reflect.
Like I said, I don't understand the ins out, but what was said to me seemed to indicate exactly what you're saying. Your job is to say, hey, we support this, we hate it, but it really has no bearing on whether or not the planning department will put it before the planning commission.
Yes.
Well, then, in that case, I would like to make a motion that we do not approve this change to the ordinance as written, and that we would like the opportunity to support, or to make changes to what is written with our support.
okay, wait a minute. Restate. Make motion to reject.
Make a motion to, reject the changes to the amendment, to the ordinance, sorry. I would like to make a motion to reject
As written.
Reject
the
those.
changes to the ordinance.
So that specifically is,
There, you can have one.
On the back,
so,
and this is so, I mean, you guys disagree with me.
We'll agree with her.
Yeah, with the expressed interest for the opportunity to resubmit our opinion.
Interest of resub.
can I make an amendment to this?
Yeah, please help me here.
Let's make an amendment to the motion, and I'm just not trying to put words in your mouth, but what I think you're saying is that, that we, can't support proposed change to the amendment based on the wording as it exists.
Yes.
And would, like the opportunity to meet, discuss.
That's alternate wording.
Yes.
Yeah, are we
Just
because that may
Yes, we'll
come about, yeah, it may mean a real change.
Yeah.
I don't want this to be pushed through, as written. That's the point of us voting, is that I think that we should have the opportunity to weigh in if this is being put to vote elsewhere without us. And so I would like to have the opportunity to weigh in on the wording of any change to the ordinance.
when is the commission meeting? Do you know?
Well, first of all, this was,
You can get rid of that too if you want.
okay, this was a table, it wasn't tabled, it was put off for a month. So to be honest, I don't know if it's gonna go before because there's not much
So
going
we,
on with
we
it.
may have one, so we can relay to Andrew that we
We don't like.
Be like
yeah, we don't like the wording for the, we don't approve
second
of
Thursday.
the wording for change in the
December. I don't know.
ordinance.
I don't think they have it in December, maybe.
I think December is maybe canceled. I'm not sure.
In future discussion of.
I'm glad, thank you for bringing this to us.
Yeah,
You feel like you're in the middle being pulled.
I'm all for it. I'm forced to see, both sides of is it practical for the private sector? But yeah, I have a lot of qualms with the tree code as it is written, but until changes are made, I'm just a referee,
So,
Well,
and so it's gotta be working.
Y'all are not the referee, I'm the referee, so it's y'all's job to.
I don't have a problem with changing the ordinance for the better. And this potentially can make, it is potentially a necessary change. I have a problem with the perception of making changes that are not in benefit to the,
Could be, yeah.
which if we are going to represent our goal of preserving, protecting the tree canopy, we can't just.
Sure. Well, the language should be clear.
Accept this as written.
At the very least, at a minimum requirement, the language should not appear to be, like, the language should at least not, look like it's removing canopy requirements.
Exactly.
And we could
Currently,
also
it reads like a revision.
suggest an additional requirement for the higher planted commitment.
Yes.
Or actually to have that in writing, maybe, instead of it just being a tit for tat.
And submit it as a proposed change to the wording.
All right, so I've got here, so we make the motion to, well, basically that we can't support the proposed amendment as the wording currently exists. We would like to suggest alternate wording, and we request that the Community Tree Council be allowed to advise the commission.
I think.
Well done, yes, thank you.
So seconds to Jesse's motion.
I second that.
Very seconds. All right, all votes. Okay, well, this is a motion to reject. So who supports the rejection? We can say aye. 2, 3, 4, 5. All right.
Betty on board?
You can abstain if you'd like as well.
No, I'm on board.
Okay.
She's back.
All right, well, it passes. I think we should try to set up or maybe just email between each other, like thoughts in the coming weeks.
If we get a copy of that, send it to us digitally.
We should try to use our ACC emails, if we can.
I would like to offer my help.
Oh,
The untrained hounds. And the house is incredibly kid friendly, but incredible.
On the same Monday as the
Right.
December meeting.
That's what we usually do.
Like later in the evening, so I'll
Great.
send out some details.
Very good.
Everybody, but
That's very nice.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor.
Were we gonna stay after for a short interview?
I cannot.
I can stay.
It will not be long. Usually 3, yeah.
The Southeastern growers availability list, get it all the time.
Yeah, definitely. Good
And
meeting.
Laura had good
Um,
talking, we basically read y'all's combined
They are
email
growing
and we had
a
a
lot
good
more.
good discussion and super excited about the
Cool.
voice. And I just think, I hope we can get that into them by the end of the year.
Oops, and
I
I
had
think we
some
will.
questions and some ideas,
Okay.
but
You wanna meet sometime?
Yeah.
Okay, just email me.
Yeah.
We'll figure out a time. Awesome. Have a good day.
This is just current availability.
Who? The developers?
Why is there any?
Yes, it's more
All the way up to big.
So we've gone to a bunch of nurseries. I've called a bunch of them, and it's just like not one selection. Like things like White Oak.
No, that's what I'm saying. Native forest nurse, native forest nursery. There's 3
Really?
They have a huge selection.
Look them up.
So it's wholesale.
Chatsworth.
That's also the native forest. In Chatsworth.
So it'll be.
They're used to
We
seeing
have
that.
public things, just let us.
I'll have to check them out. Here they are, native forest nursery.
They have a wide selection.
Chatsworth.
Of trees.
Okay.
They sell white oak.
Very wide.
Developers.
You have to order it.
Developers are always.
You're
right, I see it all
Almost all of, you can get almost any of the oaks that you want.
Cool, very cool.
Yeah. She said not far. They're in their container and.
That's awesome.
They do beverage, they
Well, they
up to large sizes. I don't.
Sweet. I've only,
Did this for a while. Another oak.
I mean, I don't know how, yeah, and like,
Scarlet, that's a.
we started using them, they were vouched for.
But nobody-
I just live in Athens and
It's claiming that according to the select, nobody's drawing a straight.
Developing content, what I've ordered.
What about, is that the same, like all the way?
looks like they started at 68.
It's the same.
Been going on for a while.
I
Very
mean,
cool.
I'll
I'll definitely have to look them up and call them and talk with them a little bit.
it comes in
Pull it down and see, like, that's all what they have now, but you have to like, you gotta place your orders relatively.
I wonder if they have sycamore.
So just maybe.
I'm gonna have to order for myself.
Crossed it with.
I'm pretty sure they have.
Oh, they have Downy Serviceberry. Yay.
They have like, they have.
Yeah.
Y'all are gonna start seeing Downy Serviceberry everywhere in town. Making everybody specify it for
That,
street
and
trees.
they're really easy to work with and very,
Select trees is offered.
pricing is very.
CTC.
They are all my
Compared to what I've
favorite.
ordered for
Really
containers.
Oh,
They have ready roots, which I don't like, but for tree planting, it works. But for restoration, they're gonna be. and
Yeah,
if
it'd be
you're planting
perfect.
sales,
Well, I'm looking to do a bunch of like small seedling plantings under like full canopy to do like oak advanced regeneration and stuff.
Yeah.
So I need seedlings like bare root stuff is,
I think it was early.
yeah, order them early.
Yeah.
I think
so
that'll be
figure out.